The most promising combination currently is the BRAF, MEK, and EGFR inhibition in the Beacon study. The Beacon study is a very large randomized phase 3 study, international effort that is enrolling patients to one of 3 different arms: a standard of care chemotherapy plus EGFR inhibition with cetuximab, one experimental arm which is encorafenib and cetuximab, BRAF and EGFR inhibition, or the second experimental arm, the third arm, which is a combination of BRAF, MEK, and EGFR, so binimetinib, encorafenib, and cetuximab. Because that triplet had not been as well studied previously, there was a safety lead-in to the Beacon study, 30 patients that were enrolled, of the triplet, encorafenib, binimetinib, and cetuximab. And this result, which was reported out at GI ASCO, demonstrated a higher rate of response of the tumor to the treatment than we'd seen with other targeted therapies. So 48% of patients were responding. And a majority of patients that, when they did respond, had good disease control, and certainly over 6 months. The median progression-free survival in this cohort was 8 months, and median overall survival in this single-arm cohort was 15 months. And this is encouraging because these were patients that had received at least 1 or 2 lines of therapy. And remembering that median survival for this population from the time of diagnosis is 12 months. So certainly suggesting that even in patients with more refractory disease that we're seeing an encouraging trend towards improved outcomes for the patients. Of course, we need and await the results of the randomized phase 3, which is completed enrollment, and we're awaiting results later in the year, we hope, in order to really better define the magnitude of benefit for these patients.
The Beacon study is primarily focused on assessing the triple combination of BRAF, MEK, and EGFR inhibition with a combination of encorafenib, binimetinib, and cetuximab. It's comparing that to doublet BRAF and EGFR therapy with encorafenib and dabrafenib alone, which has already been evaluated in a phase 2 trial, producing response rates of right around 20% and median progression-free survival of between 4 and 5 months. What this trial is doing is to compare triplet therapy to doublet therapy against a standard second or third line option, in this case a standard chemotherapy including irinotecan and/or a 5-FU backbone. And the trial is really meant to show whether this therapy, either the triplet or the doublet, actually improves outcomes relative to standard options. And the safety data for the triple combination was, as expected, very similar to the prior trial of different agents targeting BRAF, MEK, and EGFR, mainly with rash and diarrhea as the primary toxicities. Really no new safety signal was observed in the 30 patient safety lead-in that has been presented. But what's most striking about this trial thus far is the efficacy of the triplet regimen. And so the updated data presented at the ASCO GI meeting redemonstrates an overall confirmed response rate of 48%, which is by far the highest response rate that we've seen in BRAF V600 colorectal cancer patients. Again, this is only a 29 patient safety lead-in, as one patient on the study didn't actually have a BRAF V600 mutation. So these are small numbers, but these, to put it into context, these by far outpace the other response rates seen with the prior BRAF, MEK, EGFR triplet regimen of about 21%, and many of the BRAF EGFR doublet combinations, which range anywhere from about 10% to 20% response rates. And so that is certainly one of the more exciting findings. The other thing that's very encouraging is the progression-free survival. One of the biggest issues that we're having with these BRAF-directed therapies in colorectal cancer is that the responses are very short-lived, and what we call acquired resistance to therapy develops quite rapidly. And so while most of the therapies we tested so far have had median progression-free survivals in the 4-month range, the median progression-free survival in this initial 29 patient cohort was as long as 8 months, and that certainly represents what looks to be a significant improvement although of course this is a single-arm, small study, and that number certainly may change as the larger study is performed. And at the meeting, at the ASCO GI meeting, the overall survival data, which is now mature, was updated, and the overall survival in this 29-patient cohort was 15.3 months, which is again a very favorable appearing number. To put it in context, that's roughly the overall survival of BRAF V600 patients starting at the time of first-line therapy. So to have that same number for a second or third-line trial is certainly suggestive of that this therapy has the potential to prolong overall survival. And so the ongoing phase 3 study, which has completed enrollment at the end of 2018, is looking at a randomized comparison of these arms.
The safety of the BEACON regimen was consistent with what we'd seen previously and was very manageable. The main toxicity was fatigue, grade 3 fatigue seen in about 10% of patients, but very little in the way of nausea, vomiting, GI toxicity. And importantly, because we know that these regimens, these agents individually can cause rash, importantly, there was no grade 3 or higher acneiform or maculopapular rash that was associated with this. So this really is a regimen that has very manageable safety profiles. And the combination appears to blunt some of the toxicities that we see with individual agents.